Hi, my name is Steven Krein. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Startup Health. I want to welcome you to the very first episode of Startup Health Now, our new weekly show that's focusing on healthcare transformers and the change makers that are reimagining healthcare. On today's episode, I'm excited to have Josh Stein with us, who is the co-founder and CEO of AdhereTech, a company that is revolutionizing the adherence marketplace with a smart pill bottle that helps patients remember to take their medication. This is going to be a great talk.
It is the duty of leaders to lead, of the creative to create, of the daring to do. The free world expects leadership of us. Its fate and our fate depends upon our leadership. We are industrious, inventive, restless, with the fires that burn within us. Well, I say that nothing is easy, and the best things are the hardest. And all our troubles, all our immense difficulties, now and in the future, can I say, be solved if we have the will, the courage. The future is to those who take it.
Hello again, everyone. My name is Steven Krein, and I'm very excited to be here for the very first episode of Startup Health Now, a weekly show that celebrates the healthcare transformers and the change makers who are reimagining healthcare. We started the idea behind Startup Health Now because we are absolutely convinced that we're at the beginning of an epic decade of the transformation of an industry. And there's very clear indicators that the macro conditions that have emerged over the last several years, whether it's healthcare reform, whether it's the acceleration of cost, chronic disease, aging, the emergence of digital health, mobile devices, sensors, data, as well as the fact that we're living in the golden age of entrepreneurship, is proof that the creative destruction of an industry is right in front of us. And while over the last 15 years, we've watched so many industries go through their own creative destruction moment, it's clear that we're in that moment in healthcare today. And there's a new generation of entrepreneurs that are doing the very things that are needed for a decade or 2 decades from now for us to be able to look back and see that there's been an incredible disruption and incredible transformation of an industry that for decades really hasn't changed at all. And that really is what led us to 3 years ago launch Startup Health, which is an entrepreneurship platform for healthcare transformers, specifically dedicated to providing entrepreneurs with a long-term coaching program to help them build their business, a network of stakeholders, all the investors and partners, whether it's VCs, angels, corporate VCs or foundations, whether it's payers, providers, pharmaceutical companies, or the government, all the stakeholders to help those entrepreneurs. And then finally, a very robust and rapidly growing peer network of entrepreneurs that are learning from each other. And that platform, as we've built it over the last 3 years, has introduced us to really an amazing group of entrepreneurs that we dub the name Healthcare Transformers. And this show is focused on those entrepreneurs. It's really zeroing in on the amazing work that healthcare transformers are doing every day, despite the huge obstacles that are in front of the entrepreneurs in this industry. So whether it's the regulatory environment, the long sales cycles, the fact that in any other industry, the entrepreneurs care very little about the incumbents and the large companies and the government that controls an industry. In fact, they usually want to disrupt them. And so I am beyond excited to introduce today our first guest for our series, and that is Josh Stein, who is the CEO and co-founder of AdhereTech, a company that, with a smart pill bottle, is disrupting the adherence space. One of the parts of the healthcare industry that is costing everyone, whether it's the government, whether it's large companies, or even patients and caregivers, just a ton of unnecessary money. So we're going to unpack a lot with Josh today. We're going to zero in on not only what AdhereTech does, but why Josh started it, who he started it with, and what he hopes to achieve with this amazing new company. Welcome, Josh.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Just an honor to be here. Really appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited to be here. You know, one of the things that is clear when you think about the last couple of years, really, is that it's a very different feeling right now in this healthcare sector. And if you've been in the entrepreneurship game for 10 or 20 years, we've watched every industry, probably except healthcare and education, get transformed. I want to step back before we even talk about AdhereTech and just get a sense from you of why you think that's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different factors. Number one, I would say people are becoming much more comfortable with technology. It's creeping into our lives in ways that 10 years ago would have seemed so foreign. I mean, my parents both own smartphones. They text me. They go on the web. They use Spotify. If someone told me this a decade ago, I would have called them crazy. technology is everywhere. People are comfortable with it, and it's obviously creeping its way into healthcare. Beyond that, we have, industry change, healthcare reform, and, sort of a general, I don't even want to call it a trend because that seems finite, but maybe more of a movement toward entrepreneurs breaking into all these different industries. The costs of starting companies is coming down, of building products is coming down. So that just allows a lot of really creative people to build products for many different uses, including healthcare.
Is this your first startup?
Yes and no. So, this is the first startup of, this stature and size that I've personally founded. But I have worked for, 2 other companies, which one was a startup, one was a pseudo startup. So right out of college, I've always been interested in entrepreneurship. First job out of college, I worked for this company called Fresh Direct. And if you're in the New York City area, you obviously know about them. Basically, they are an online grocery delivery platform. When I worked for them, they were about 4 years old. I was a business analyst, basically managing the budgets for IT, and the company experienced expansive growth during my time there. It was fantastic. I got to work closely with a lot of the C-level executives, learned a lot. Another startup that I was employee number 4 at was this company called Placevine. So Placevine was a company that was acquired a few years ago. What they do is they help brands get placed into different media, so in the product placement space. And the approach that they took was, so before they sort of disrupted the industry, the way that product placement would work, it was based on a lot of relationships. You have a brand, someone's filming media, you know the guy, you can put Pepsi in your movie.
And what were the 2 experiences, in terms of kind of shaping your own thinking about being an entrepreneur, getting involved with startups? What was it about them that you liked so much?
The basic thing that I'd say I learned from, all the brilliant people I worked with at both companies was, don't be afraid to go after the big guys. I still remember this one meeting at Fresh Direct where the CEO was he pulled out this newspaper so the year that he did this was, I think, 2007. The newspaper clipping was from around 2001. And it was from one of the large grocery chains in New York, who I won't mention, basically laughing at the idea of Fresh Direct, saying it'll never work. And that day, our CEO at Fresh Direct announced that particular grocery chain was closing about 7 stores. So don't be afraid of the incumbents. Don't be afraid of the big guys. If you have a better product, put it out there, develop something awesome.
So what'd that lead you to do?
I've always been focused on entrepreneurship, and basically I started business school in 2010.
Where'd you go?
I went to Wharton, University of Pennsylvania. Graduated in 2012. My number one goal in school was to found a company that was, hopefully healthcare focused, but beyond all else, worth pursuing upon graduation.
That was your goal going into business school?
It was. And
did you write it down?
Yeah, it's on my application. I want to start a business in school, and Wharton has fantastic entrepreneurial programs that I could talk about for hours, but they, helped me incubate the idea, bounce, the iterations of the ideas off really smart people, and they were just fantastic.
How many years ago was that?
I founded the company in 2011, but really came up with the concept, I'd say, even before business school, 2008.
How many different ideas did you play with while you were in business school?
Two main ones. So it was, the smart pill bottle idea, and then this other idea that was sort of based on bringing the best aspects of the online shopping experience into the retail shopping experience. But for many reasons, decided this was much more promising.
Why? What was it about them that you felt was more promising?
Basically, the smart people that I spoke with in healthcare were a lot more receptive to this idea than the smart people that I spoke with in, I guess, retail shopping about the other idea.
Right. So you just it felt different.
It felt different. I shared my idea with lots of smart people in both sectors.
Who do you consider smart people?
Anyone and everyone, honestly, just, there's sort of...
Was it investors? Was it doctors? Was it
people that work in the industry.
Okay.
That's where we first started sharing the ideas. Pharma folks, people on the insurance side, with this idea, and then, people that worked for some of the big box retailers with the other idea.
Were you afraid of sharing the idea with people?
Initially, I was. Something I learned in business school was that you shouldn't be. It took me a while to fully internalize that idea. Once I did, it was like night and day. People tell you things that you wouldn't have known otherwise because you shared that idea with them. Otherwise, you're going in blind. You have to share your idea with people.
Right. And were you sharing with people you knew? Were you cold calling? Did you get introduced to people? How did you even know who to share it with?
All the above. I shared it with my classmates. I shared it with classmates' warm intros into people in industries. I shared it with professors, with alumni, with my parents, family, friends, anyone and everyone.
All right. So what did you share with them? I want to kind of lead into kind of AdhereTech, but what were you sharing with them exactly?
It's hard to think of these specifics just because, I mean, the product has evolved immensely since then. The idea started out as a pill bottle that would remind patients to take their pills. I mean, we've since gone so far beyond that. We're now more of an adherence platform that, has real-time interventions, et cetera, et cetera. But that was the general idea. And I initially had a bit of a fear that people would sort of steal this idea. It's never once even crossed anyone's mind.
What's never crossed anyone's mind? The idea?
Taking the idea once you share it with them in an open and honest format. You hear stories on various media outlets about, this really big startup sort of had two people going at it, and the idea was stolen from one, or however it tends to play out. But I really think that those stories are few and far between, and that sharing your idea has so much value that even if that was a risk, which I don't think it is, it might even be worth taking.
Right. And who were you working with to actually develop this idea? Was it your classmates at Wharton?
When I think about AdhereTech now, it's not just me. It's, me and my two co-founders, John Langhauser and Mike Morena. So when I say we, I just mean AdhereTech.
Right. And were they at school with you?
They actually weren't. Okay. I met both of them after I graduated. So, I guess this lesson that I tell a lot of entrepreneurs that may not have sort of tech background, like I did not have a tech background, I had a business background. In order to start any sort of company today, you really need a tech guy.
You're not the tech guy?
I'm not the tech guy.
What are you?
Business guy, technically.
Okay.
And when I say tech guy, I don't mean, some guy that you'd see in like an action movie that's just, coding away all day. I mean, someone who's really smart.
Although sometimes they do look like that.
That's true. But when they're working, it's hard to tell the difference. But someone who really understands tech and how people use tech and how it could be used to improve products. The way that I found my first of two co-founders, John was the first to join, Mike was the second, was, and this is what I tell other entrepreneurs, go as far as you can by yourself, because really smart tech people are in very high demand, and they sort of have their pick of the litter of really great products. So before John joined AdhereTech, I had written a business plan. I'd licensed a patent. With that patent came a very rudimentary prototype, and I joined Blueprint Health, which is one of the two incubators. Obviously, Startup Health is the other. But I got as far as I could by myself, and then I thought it was time to reach out to different, potential co-founders.
Okay, you licensed a patent? You said you want to go back to that for a second.
Yeah. So something that sort of, is really important, perhaps uniquely a hardware sort of a way of the road when you're founding a company, you really need IP protection. Mostly so that, you understand.
So is this your patent or is it someone else's patent?
It's a patent from the University of Alabama.
Okay. So you actually started digging into actually pill bottles and adherence and found somebody already owned the patent on it.
Yeah. So once I had the business plan written for, and I mean, again, the idea has evolved immensely since then, for a smart pill bottle and who it could benefit, I said, you know what? I really need a patent. So I went to the USPTO website, US Patent and Trademark Office website, literally started typing stuff in, pill bottle, medication container, etc. Found a patent that was issued to the University of Alabama only a few months prior. This whole process took place in 2011. Reached out to them, and basically, every university, they patent ideas all the time. And all of these ideas are, well, most of them are sitting dormant in technology transfer offices, waiting for entrepreneurs to go there and say, hey, I want to commercialize your idea. I contacted them. They were very receptive. A few months later, my professors at business school helped me negotiate an exclusive agreement to the patent for the life of the patent. Since have a few more patents that we personally filed, but really, really, really important for us.
All right, so you had all that done and found yourself with now a not only vetted idea, but you now started to have people around you, surrounding you to help you build the company.
Exactly.
What is AdhereTech and how do you describe it?
So, we are an adherence company, right in the name, adherence and technologies. We create different technologies to help people take their pills. Our first and flagship product is the Smart Pill Bottle. I actually have one of our Generation 1 prototypes right here. But
was there a Generation 0? Was there like was that the very first, or was there something that was actually done before this?
There were really rudimentary prototypes that were just sort of, wires and breadboards coming out of orange pill bottles. But those were helping us design and understand how we created this one. So this product is currently being used by real patients. We have trials active with great partners, the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Weill Cornell Medical College, Boehringer Ingelheim, and then another top 5 pharma company that we can't announce just yet. But
how many people are using it? How many patients actually are using the pill bottle?
So the patients are in the hundreds, and we built 1,000 of the Gen 1 devices. And the reason why we call them Gen 1 is because we just raised a round of funding. I could talk about that process and how helpful Startup Health was in that whole process going forward. But the Gen 2 devices is what we're designing now. So the funding that we just raised is going toward...
you want to actually back up on that, because...
Got into sales mode.
What? You talk to an entrepreneur, that's what you get.
Yeah.
I want to back up. What was the original... How did you get this thing started funding-wise? So you have this idea, you graduate,
yeah,
and you are launching this company, and where'd you get money to start this?
So, we raised a really small, well, not really small, comparatively small seed round right after we graduated from Blueprint of $125,000.
From who?
Friends and family, essentially. But, some are investors we met through the program, and then some are literally friends and family.
Okay. So I always, talk to entrepreneurs about this notion of talking to friends and family who are able to support your idea, your effort. Who exactly did you go? Did you go to aunts, uncles, friends, and how'd you even have the courage to actually talk to them about it?
All of the above, and you definitely need courage to do that because, nothing is scarier than failing and having it hurt people that you love and that are part of your life. So, first and foremost, it has to be an idea that you believe in so much that, it permeates every ounce of your being and that, your friends and family can tell. So, we had that sort of box checked. Number 2, you need to find the friends and family who not only believe in you because, truthfully, probably all of your friends and family believe in you, but are willing to, write a check to believe in you. And you want to have a conversation with them beforehand and say, listen, this is early stage, this is a risk, because as an entrepreneur, you might understand the risk, they might not, and say, this might work, it might not. So once you really put it out there, full transparency, full honesty, it's a lot less scary.
Right. Did you ask them for money, or did you just tell them the idea and tell them you wanted to meet people who had money? Did you actually ask them?
No. So, a pitch that's worked well for us in terms of fundraising was we sent out, emails to friends and family and others, and we said, listen, we're not necessarily looking for you to invest. Do you know anyone who might be interested in investing? And we meant that with pure earnesty, because what better way to expand your network 100-fold than to ask one person who may know 100? And that pitch did resonate with some, and some introduced us to others who invested.
And so, how many different people invested in the first round?
3. So we like to keep our investors relatively secret.
Why?
But just because they didn't sign up for maybe being the early stage investor people that others would contact.
Okay.
And we hold those relationships so dear. But 3 people initially, and for that $125,000. And more or less, more people, less people, it wouldn't have mattered. That's how much we needed. We had 3 people that committed it, and that really got us off and running. When we raised that amount of money, we didn't have a prototype that was pretty.
So what'd you have? Was it just an idea and a business plan?
Idea, business plan. We had really great pilot partners, some of whom we're already working with.
How'd you get that? How'd you get pilot partners without a prototype, a product, or capital?
So we hustled. That's number 1. And then number 2, we were extremely honest with who we are, what we're doing, and where we are in the process. So, we pounded the pavement. We found different researchers, and we said, we're developing this. Here's our timeline. We expect to have working bottles at this point. Are there any opportunities for us to work with you? That's how we started out initially, obviously.
So you talked to a lot of people, A, before you had the idea fully baked, B, before you had a prototype, C, before you had funding. And were able to develop a much better, I'm assuming, product as a result of having all those things lined up?
Without any doubt. almost every conversation was fruitful, whether it's, speaking to, just trying to think back 3 years ago, speaking to a guy who made scales and telling us that, putting a scale inside of a bottle would be very expensive. We had no idea. We didn't know how much it cost to make a scale in a bottle. Whether it was, speaking to someone about the flaws of what they perceived current existing products to be, and sort of us going on that journey and understanding what it meant. But yeah, we spoke to anyone and everyone, and we would be nowhere near where we are today without having done that.
Right. So as you were pitching companies to work with them, talking to people about building your product, raising all these different things, were you becoming more excited by the day and passionate about the problem, or were you just focusing on being a good business? Like, which side of the kind of fence were you on?
So focusing on being a good business was something that was, sort of constant and always there. The evolution of us being more passionate about the problem was, definitely the thing that you could see looking back, coming up to where we are today. When you actually speak with patients that, suffer from various diseases, I mean, we're targeting a number of diseases, but a large percentage of the diseases we're targeting are very serious. HIV, cancer, other, sort of diseases of the like.
Why?
There's a few reasons. There's, distribution benefits of getting products to those patients, because it's a lot more involved of a process when those patients get their meds. Mm-hmm. There's also more of a need for those patients to take their meds. If you miss an oral chemotherapy medication dosage, it's not the potential complications are worse than if you miss, an aspirin. And then there's sort of an ROI issue. In order to get any product out into the hands of people, you need some party to benefit monetarily. And there's more of a monetary benefit when you target those drugs. But that amalgamation of reasons is sort of why we're targeting. But, speaking to patients that suffer from those diseases, it makes you, just want to build something that can solve that problem so badly in every ounce of your being. That was a definite evolution.
Gotcha. And so as you emerge, as a funded now company, even with a light amount of funding initially, mm-hmm. A product, now a prototype.
Yeah.
At what point in time, give me a sense of timing. You started this into 2011. Where are you by the time you get this thing actually launched and ready to start building prototypes or working on prototypes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, graduated business school in, so I'm just going to have to do some mental math, May of 2012. Entered Blueprint Health in July of 2012, graduated Blueprint Health in October of 2012.
So Blueprint, I just want to tell you, it's Blueprint Health 3-month program.
Exactly.
Here in New York City.
Exactly. We didn't have a working prototype until May of 2013. So that's basically about a year after I graduated. We were going full-time with this company for a year before we had not only patients using the devices. That came 6 months even after the working prototype. But we're a hardware company without a working piece of hardware for a year. So, speaking to potential pilot partners, different industry execs about business models, different investors, that was really valuable. And a tactic that worked really well for us, I hesitate to even call it a tactic because, it was, again, we're fully transparent, and that's how we built a lot of these relationships is, you get some money in, and that allows you to advance to a certain stage, have early mock-ups of a prototype. Now you have these mock-ups you can show to other investors, and that gets you more money. And
so there were stepping stones. So,
exactly.
So how much of this was a function of where we are in 2012, 13, 14 in terms of technologies, 3D printing, all the different things? Could this have happened 5 or 10 years ago? Could this solution, could the technology, could this offering have even come to fruition?
I don't think it would have been possible. When I just think of all of the different, tools that are really new that we use to build our business every day, 5 years ago, definitely not 10 years ago, it just wouldn't have been possible.
What kind of tools?
Whether it's a MakerBot that we use just for prototyping purposes to hold in our hand, or
what's a MakerBot?
It's whether it's a 3D printer MakerBot, very popular consumer model that we use to be like, the bottle would feel good if it has this curve. Or even more expensive 3D printing machines that didn't exist 5 years ago, or that we might not have had access to be like, okay, smooth this out, this looks beautiful. Or having these technological tools to build the back end, and having it be stuff that we buy text messaging plans from Verizon that sort of, and we may be switching, we may not, but 5 years ago, smart devices, they weren't even a thing. Nobody was talking about them.
So all the things. Yeah. So from developing the prototypes to the technology that's in them, to all of the pieces that we kind of where mobile devices are, all play into this. So pick up the pill bottle again, because I want to dig into this. Yeah. I always describe it, and when I think about it, I think of like the Kindle and how it's always on, connected, lots of data streaming. Explain a little bit more about the pill bottle, because I think there's a lot of companies in the adherence space, a lot of people playing at, slicing and dicing this problem in a lot of different ways. I think the way you guys are doing is very unique. But as we talk about the prototype, we talk about what's in it now, and we talk about the first 1,000 units that you developed for Gen 1.
Yeah, definitely.
Show us what a Gen 1 looks like.
Absolutely.
And works like.
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, this is the Gen 1 prototype. Gen 2 coming out early 2015. Technology will be the same, but it will look and feel be the size of a normal pill bottle. So, you used the Kindle analogy before. The Kindles keep on getting smaller and lighter. That's exactly what this bottle's doing. But the way it works is, we put a cellular chip, just like a cell phone. It's always connected. We put it inside of the bottle. So the bottle is always sending us data. And what we do is our system automatically compares what patients are doing to what they should be doing. If there is a discrepancy, like patients didn't take their meds, then we intervene, and we do that in a series of ways. So before the dose is supposed to be taken, so during that ideal dosage time, the bottle's blue, sort of gently calling the user over, saying, please take your meds. Once the dose is late, the bottle flashes red and it beeps. And at that same moment, we also reach out to the patient and or caregiver via text message and or automated phone call. So we have on-bottle alerts, phone alerts, and then last thing, we do go further than that too. So, medication adherence is really complicated. The reasons why patients don't take their pills vary on drug, they vary on disease state, they vary on demographic. So lots of different reasons why patients don't take their pills.
Right. And so you keep talking about pills. Is this liquid or just pills in terms of what the bottle does?
So our patents are broad in the sense that they do cover medication containers for liquids. This is a pill bottle meant for pills exclusively.
Okay.
Just really quick, basically, if patients have certain patterns of non-adherence, we ask them why they missed their pills. We can route that information to the appropriate party, whether it's a live nurse, a live case manager. So now you can know on day one that a cancer patient didn't take their meds because they have really intense side effects. Compare that to the status quo. You wouldn't know until day 30 when a refill is late. So we're going way beyond simple reminders.
Right. So when people in the industry who've been in the industry for 10, 20, 30 years see this pill bottle, what's their first reaction?
A few different things. Some people are like, awesome, I really want this, and we have great pilot partners, and that's sort of their reaction. Obviously they did tons of due diligence, but some are inspired by it, is what I meant to convey. Others are more skeptical, and that's fine. That's the nature of the beast when you're creating a completely new device.
Is the skepticism about your offering, or the problem on the patient side and the people actually behavior change and the other things that have to go along with that?
It runs a gamut. Some people say, you come with a smart pill bottle and they'll say they think it's meant to solve every adherence issue for every patient ever, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're very targeted for specialty meds and as a clinical trial tool. But they'll say, what about this, that, and the other? And we tell them that's not what we're trying to do. So there's sort of that knee-jerk reaction.
Is that hard, by the way, just out of curiosity, to stay focused? Like you're able to say exactly what you do and what you don't do, but are you able to squash that skepticism when you start talking about how you're insanely focused on this one problem or one part of the problem?
Yes, but not all the time. Like sharing your story and vision and product with anyone, some people will take that at face value. You're being truthful. This is what we're targeting. This is what they're not. And they'll say, yeah, that's great. Others will honestly think, this doesn't work because they have an answer that didn't work for me. As an entrepreneur, you're putting yourself out there, your idea out there all the time. People will say no, and you just gotta, let it roll off your shoulder and truly make it not affect, your psyche. And
right. So you got your lean in. I want to help you, and how can we pilot with you group?
Totally.
You've got your group of people who are skeptical, and what's the third group?
I would say I put the skeptics in two categories. One is this isn't for everyone. So you're only targeted for a few. I don't want this. The other one is, we've seen similar products before that, haven't had mass adoption. And we totally get this. They lump us into those other products. We understand.
What are some of the other products they lump you in on?
I don't want to say because there's
what types of products?
Adherence hardware devices that may work in any number of ways. And I just want to honestly say, like, a lot of these products are awesome, and just because a person at a company thinks that it didn't work doesn't mean that's at all truthful. But people will say, I've seen a similar product a few years ago and it didn't catch on, therefore they think it didn't work. So they sort of lump us in there, and
right.
we do have a really unique take on the adherence market that.
What's the
if you hold a gun to my head, I'll tell you. So it's that a lot of these other products, whether it's software or hardware, they ask patients who don't take their pills to go through long and complicated processes to set up a tool to help them take their meds.
Okay, so the idea,
and we don't. We're simple.
Right. So the idea is they ask a lot of the patient.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's where you think it falls down.
Exactly. So when we were designing our product, everything about it is we don't want to interrupt workflows. How do patients normally receive a pill bottle? That's how they'll receive our pill bottle. How do they normally?
How do they receive a pill bottle? At the pharmacy.
So yeah, it depends.
From the doctor. Yep.
Retail pharmacy patients will receive it. Everyone's been there in that little baggie. Right now, our ideal distribution model is mail order, but it's the same way in that you get your meds shipped to you in a bottle. And when this bottle arrives at a patient's doorstep, we didn't want to say, okay, now assemble this and then sync this to. We just said we want it to work. So that's why we went with cellular technology, just like a cell phone. So it literally is, patient pulls a pull tab, boom, it's working. Everything that we designed into our product is, how do patients normally do things? That's how our product will be used in the same way. Nothing new for the patient to do, so that's why it will be adopted.
Okay, so that's the patient experience part of the adherence market. What else? You said there's a number of different things that are unique about it. So you got ease of use. What else?
So ease of use, and then the other big tenet is versatility. So like I said, there's two main markets that we're targeting with this device, and these weren't always the markets that we were targeting, but after we shared our ideas with smart people, we realized that it really had two places where it would really work well. One I already mentioned, specialty meds. So this is a device in our trials that patients are receiving from a mail order pharmacy. Their pills in our bottle. So same exact way, that's one distribution model. We're very versatile in that this is also a solution that's used for trials. Clinical trials, bringing new drugs to market, making sure patients are taking their meds, and if patients aren't, perhaps excluding them, saying, well, it's not that the drug doesn't work, it's that this patient wasn't taking their meds, so let's exclude them from the data. Also, academic researchers. Adherence is a really big problem, and a lot of people are on the academic side are saying, what if we do X, Y, or Z to help the problem? Well, we need something to actually measure if patients are, taking their pills in addition to the interventions sometimes that our bottles are delivering, sometimes that the study's delivering. So, this is something that study coordinators can give to patients as well.
Right.
It's something that patients can pour their meds into, very versatile.
So each of these things, whether it's ease of use, whether it's the high-end medications, whether it's clinical trials, it seems like the stakes need to be high.
Oh, yeah.
So does that play into your view of the adherence market and like some of these solutions that are out there where the stakes aren't that high, taking your cholesterol medication every day, taking something that at the end of the day isn't either life or death or have a high dollar sign connected to it from the pharmaceutical companies? Like, I want to understand a little bit more about, if you think about adherence, you talk about it being a huge problem. How big of a problem is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
How much money is lost or spent or missed because of adherence? I mean,
absolutely. So, we think that the stakes are high for every drug and disease state. Just because we're targeting a few doesn't mean that we're ignoring others. We want to have a place in those others as well. But adherence is an enormous problem. $300 billion in increased costs are added to our healthcare system every year because patients are not taking their meds. Insanely high numbers. $100 billion in lost revenues for pharma because patients aren't taking their meds. And you may look at those numbers and say, well, I don't care if pharma makes money. But these meds save people's lives, and when patients take them, patients are healthier too. 125,000 patients in the US alone die every year because they don't take their meds. It's a problem that affects everyone directly or indirectly, from the business side, from the human side. It's enormous.
So do you see AdhereTech expanding its footprint into all areas of adherence, medication adherence, or is it going to stay high end and stay into this area where it's got a high dollar amount connected to it, it's got the ease of use and the actual experience to be so important?
Yeah, for the short term, probably high end. And the reason why it's high end is, like I said, it's largely ROI and distribution. It's not that we, targeted specific drugs at the onset. It's where our solution fits. But, we really care about this issue so passionately, and we, sort of in the very, very early pipeline have products that hopefully will be solutions to, more chronic meds and work for hopefully, almost every patient out there.
Gotcha. Okay, so today you're looking, how many pilot partners do you have now that you've announced or you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah. So we have 4. Basically, we built 1,000 of the Gen 1 devices, and they're all being used in 4 pilots. And
how long will those pilots last for?
They vary in size and scope. Basically, every one has a control group versus a test group of patients not using, patients of using the bottles either just to collect data or some other control group measuring baseline adherence, and then a test group of patients using our bottles with the full interventions, messages, lights, chimes, feedback, and we're comparing the degrees to which we improve adherence.
And what are you expecting or hoping out of that? Is it single digit percentage improvement, double digit? What's the?
So we're hoping. So we're very, very careful. We've seen the early data, but we're extremely careful to never quote any sort of numbers that we may or may not be held to, because the sample size is still small because the studies are ongoing and started about 8 months ago. That's when the first one started. And
gotcha. When will they last till? When are they targeted to last till?
They really vary, mostly through 2015. Hopefully, late 2014, some may wrap up. But what I can say is that we are seeing what we perceive to be very large increases, and that's all I can really say in good faith.
Surprise you at all? I mean, are they higher than you thought, lower than you thought, exactly what you expected?
They're in what we were targeting and hoping for, so we're very, very pleased with the results.
Gotcha. And so have you done all this? You mentioned some recent funding. You did the first part with $125,000. Yeah. What else have you raised since then? And how much additional infrastructure and things have you needed to put in place in order to get to 4 launched pilot partners and programs that are going to give you the data you need? Absolutely, yeah.
So something I touched on before was, it's sort of, this end of the company speeds up, and then this one catches up, and you get to raise more money to do more product development. And then there's, tons of other levers as well that are, constantly going. But we raised $125,000 after Blueprint. It allowed us to start with a really great design firm called Tomorrow Lab here in New York to put the initial pieces in place to design this guy. And then as we got more and more mock-ups, we were able to raise more money. All told, before we raised our Series A, which I could talk about in a moment, we raised about $600,000 from various investors to get, we produced 1,000 of these. Plus, we also won about $150,000 in non-dilutive award money.
That's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, and just really quick, you asked me earlier, could you have done this 5 years ago? Another really huge evolution in the startup space, especially healthcare, is the acknowledgement of a lot of startups, whether it's by the NYC EDC, which gave us money, whether it's by the Boehringer Ingelheim. We won a really big the Healthcare Innovation World Cup sponsored by them. These things didn't exist 5 years ago, so we got $150K in non-dilutive funding because of these programs that didn't exist 5 years ago.
So you got your 125. So since Blueprint, and you raised that money in the initial round, how much have you raised since this? You had 600,000, and then has there been money on top of that?
Yes. So and I mean this with all sincerity. We just raised our Series A, and we met them. I mean, I know I've told you a million times, but through Startup Health, our investors, and it's one of those things that you accomplish as a company that just it's arguably our biggest accomplishment. Building the prototype and then raising the Series A, because the Series A is going to allow us to make this thing real.
In doing that, because I want to zero in on what did this round of financing in terms of kind of the process, what was different about what you needed to get this round of financing versus all previous rounds of financing? What was the difference?
Yeah, so we just raised our Series A of $1.75 million, and basically what that allows us to do is make a device that's completely scalable. So this device, the Gen 1 device, works beautifully, but obviously there's some things we wanted to improve, size, shape. The technology works really well. But you can't build a hardware company, even though we call ourselves, a hardware, software, and data company. You can't build a company that sort of its backbone is a hardware device with a device that isn't scalable. So we needed to build a Generation 2 device that could be produced at a contract manufacturer as needed, like off the assembly line. So that's what this money is allowing us to do. To redesign it, we're working with a great design firm for the Gen 2 device called Intelligent Product Solutions. They do work for Motorola. They do work for Pepsi. They're just awesome.
So do you have any in-house expertise around product design?
Yeah, we do. We have that as well. So, just to sort of talk about my team really quick, something that was really important to us was to have a team that was really varied in terms of expertise, but then, sort of Renaissance men in that they understood a little bit of everything. So we do. We just hired our fourth guy, but the three co-founders are me. I take care of most business issues, financing, sales, etc. Again, we all have our hands in everything. But then my two co-founders, John and Mike. So John Langhauser, he does all of the tech back-end stuff, analyzing all the data, building the systems to respond in real time. Unbelievably genius, complicated stuff. He designs all that. And then Mike, he's you would call it a design guy, but so much more than that, hardware manufacturing. He knows how to speak to the people that would be making our bottle, tweak the design, build mock-ups on the 3D printers. The three of us together, really, it's
the dream team.
Yeah, your words, not mine.
So you got the dream team building this. You got now a new firm helping you with Gen 2. Keep going. Sorry, I wanted to step back and understand the background of that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then so I mean, basically, if you want to build a device that's big in stature and what it can accomplish and scalable, you need money. You have to work with big time contract manufacturers, big time design firms, and they cost money. And also, you need to build out your own team. We just hired our fourth employee, Andres Contreras. He's basically a master's student who's going to graduate soon. He's an intern while he's still in school, graduating soon. Hopefully, he'll be joining us full time.
So you're a small team.
Yes and no.
But leveraging a lot of external team members.
Exactly. So full time AdhereTech. Yes, that's small, but we use a lot of really great products. Like our messaging. Right now, we currently go with Twilio, which is a state-of-the-art text messaging platform. We don't have to build that. That's an off-the-shelf product. Yep. We work with people that design Motorola cell phones. We could have hired an in-house team, but we work with these amazing, experienced guys. And same with the software back-end stuff. So full-time, the people that come to the office every day are small, but the team is so expansive.
So, this kind of leads to the part where I love digging into, which is, there's the front stage of a business, which is obviously all about what people see and on your website, what they see when you pitch or present or talk about on stage or in front of people. Backstage is a whole different operation.
Totally.
What you're talking about, and you basically build AdhereTech for less than $1 million, the initial foundation of AdhereTech,
definitely,
with a very small team. Almost laughable if you had talked about even trying to do this 5 years
totally
ago,
fair.
right? 10 years ago. The mindset's different. We're talking about exponential capability now that you have to lean on other people, other organizations, other technologies that are almost in place perfectly now. A lot of people talk about timing is everything.
Yeah.
As you think about backstage, right, and we always break down, a company's development into these three buckets of there's a team, there's commercialization of a product to validate and actually build a case around, the outcomes or the impact that the product makes.
Yeah.
And then there's capitalization and making sure there's enough runway to execute.
Yeah.
As you think about leveraging external resources, I want to understand. You've done it really well. Why do you think you've been able to keep your team small and successfully leverage other firms and people to build such a game-changing technology and company?
Yeah, so it's funny to talk about company culture when you're 4 people, but we really do have one. There's traditional tenets that we have in our company culture, like innovation, complete honesty, complete transparency. Another one that's really helped us from an entrepreneurial perspective, we don't spend money unless we absolutely have to. Now, I don't want to make it seem like we're cheap and cutting corners. We're not. I mean, we're an FDA registered, medical device. We're HIPAA compliant. That's where we should spend money, and that's where we need to spend money. Where we don't spend money is, all the accoutrements that might make a cool office very startup feeling. And, we have a nice office, and it has everything you might want, beautiful mini fridge and all that. But we spend money when we need to, and we are very careful not to say, oh, someone's telling us this. Let's just spend money and then see where it could be useful. We do our homework. We're really smart about where money goes in and out.
And how hard, who interfaces with all the external resources? To each of you, or is it all centered through you?
Each of us in sort of a different area of expertise, but then, every decision is made jointly as a group. Externally, on the sales and, sort of relationship building and financing, I take the lead there. But, we do outsource and think about a bunch of different development work. John, our CTO, does all that. Like, he takes care of HIPAA compliance, security, which products to use to make our system work really well. Mike speaks to our design team and, our contract manufacturers. There's so much external conversation that has to occur. The whole team does it, and then we sort of, hop on phone calls as needed. But
so do you think as you grow, you'll keep that same focus on, lean internal, leveraging external, or do you think as you raise just a new round of financing and you raise subsequent rounds of financing, you'll kind of bulk up the team? We will absolutely not change the philosophy. Whether the team grows or not, that's sort of yet to be seen. We'll do that on an as-needed basis. But the philosophy will remain 100% intact. And, the whole team, all four of us, are steadfast in that understanding and agreement in that area. Right.
So.
Have your pilot partners or initial partners at all been concerned about the size of your team? And actually, have you tried to, I remember my first startup almost 20 years ago, we had a voicemail system. It was actually like a recording. We actually had like someone come in and actually record a professional thing to route you to all, like, to sales and marketing, to customer service, to technology. They were all us, but it was like press 1 to. We tried to make sure that we looked bigger and felt bigger to everybody externally. Do you wear this proudly, or do you kind of, try to keep people, away from kind of knowing what real size you are, or do you proudly wear that?
So, honestly, the answer is probably both. So, again, like, first and foremost, full transparency. When we speak with any of our partners, like, we introduce the team to them. They know us all by our first name, and we are 100% honest about our size, everything, because we never want to be the guys that said X and did Y. So, first and foremost, we're totally honest. But then, from a sales and marketing perspective, you obviously want to, appear bigger than you are. So, our website, our press, that all makes us seem like we are a bigger company. And, that's honestly because I truly believe our product and our vision is bigger, but we never, ever try to mislead, but we do try to project an image of something bigger.
Right. So related to that, you just raised some money. Will you be expanding the team, or just be expanding, like, your development externally? Like, how do you think about the next, let's call it 12 to 18 months?
So, in our budget, we do have some additional team members that we will be adding in 2015. At this exact moment, we don't really need them. When we do, we'll hire them. But the plan is for the team to grow. We don't know by how much, but in traditional startup sense, not by that much. So we expect to be under 10 people for the foreseeable future.
Right.
But
did your original business plan call for you to be bigger? Like, did you think you was going to take more people internally?
We did. And it's honestly, I give the credit to my two co-founders for knowing the products that, you can sort of leverage that exist and you don't have to build in-house, so you don't need to hire for. We thought we would have to be bigger, and we don't have to be, because there's a lot of awesome technologies out there that make this run beautifully in probably a better way than something we could build ourselves.
Excellent. So I want to touch on customer development or commercialization of the product just for a moment. I want to go back. You've rattled off your 4 partners and pilots. The very first one had to believe. You had no data. You had no product.
Definitely.
You had nothing. What was it about that first pilot partner or person at that firm or the organization that you're piloting with that was different than everybody else?
I wouldn't say that they were different, because a lot of our pilot partners are early adopters, innovative, awesome companies. But what was special about this first group was that their decision to work with you was based on the team. It wasn't based on anything else. And it was the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, like world-class institution. And, other early adopters, these other amazing pilot partners we have, they said...
How'd you meet them? How'd you meet Walter Reed? Or the person at Walter Reed?
Pounded the pavement. We went on, we did lots of research to see who the leading adherence researchers were. We leveraged our existing networks to see if they knew anyone in research.
Did you get the right person the very first time at
Absolutely
Walter?
Not. At Walter Reed?
Yeah.
We got it on the right path early, but we got a million wrong people at other organizations before. And honestly, I don't blame them. It's all about comfortability and early adoption of technology. Some aren't there, some are there. Walter Reed was there, and I mean they were the best partners we ever could have asked for.
And how long did it take you to convince them to do your first pilot?
They were actually really receptive. When you find people that are passionate about the idea, especially, something that might be unique instead of like more of a traditional pharma sales technique, but in more of a researcher sales technique. These researchers are, world-class innovators and thinkers, but they don't get contacted that much with new and innovative technology. So when you go to them and you say, we're developing this product that's exactly what you do, and we want to work with you, they're very receptive, as opposed to, a pharma company, not that they're not receptive, but they just hear people trying to sell to them a lot more often. So, finding people who are passionate, and that's what, if I could put them into a capsule.
Can you pick them out much easier now than when you started? Like pick out the people who are the right people right off the bat, and distinguish them from the people who are just going to lead you down a rabbit hole.
Totally, definitely. There's something that's true beyond business, but in all aspects of life. If people want to work with you or be with you or hang out with you, they will, right? If they don't, they won't. And it's really simple, but that's something that's really helped us target who the right people to work with are. They'll get back to you, they'll answer your emails. And, obviously there's exceptions to every rule. And some of our, partners are perhaps, and investors are perhaps those exceptions, because we really did hustle. But the ones that really cared, and they got back to us, and now we see it. Yeah.
You can see it. So I got introduced many years ago to the concept of batteries included people who give you energy, and batteries not included people who deplete your energy. Yeah. My very first and most probably significant entrepreneurial coach and mentor, Dan Sullivan, kind of coined this term, and it made me look through that lens every single time I walk into a meeting or a room. And one of the things I think that at the core of what we're doing at Startup Health is trying to build a network of all those that want to lean in and help startups, and all the ones that are the naysayers and the ones that want to deplete the energy of the entrepreneurs that they're meeting with. Yeah. And in building any startup, let alone a healthcare startup, just knowing who is batteries included and versus batteries not included can make all the difference between your company living or not. Right. Because whether it's the capital or the time or the actual ability to kind of say, you know what, we're going to give you a try, we like you. Yeah. Because it does come down to the likability of the team and the entrepreneurs, which kind of leads me to this framework that I want to touch on before we wrap up the show, which is one of the things that I think is at the core of the thesis behind Startup Health and everything we do, is that it's going to be entrepreneurs that transform this industry. Mm-hmm. But they can't do it alone. They need to do it with really other stakeholders. They need investors. They need customers and partners. I think in so many other industries, it's much more clear that there's a user and a customer, and someone's going to pay you for it. In healthcare, the person that pays for it isn't the person that receives the value, isn't the person that approves it. There's reimbursement. There's so many different pieces of the equation that you have to take into account. So we spend all of our time focusing on identifying great entrepreneurs who have potential, great teams that have potential, and then coaching them, connecting them with stakeholders that want to lean in, that we've identified, and also, and most importantly, building what we believe is an army of healthcare transformers that can, working together, figure out what works and what doesn't work. And it leads me to this core of being a coachable entrepreneur, being a coachable team. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it becomes even more apparent as we're now going into, we're about to bring on, we'll have 80 companies in Startup Health in the next few weeks when we make the announcement. A fundable team or a backable team or a partnerable team that an organization will want to partner with. I want to get your own take on A, when you started, what you thought, and B, now realizing the significance of the peer network, the coachability, and the connection to others who are going to lean in and help you?
Yeah, so, when a company, so just like you said, you're a startup, the way you're going to make it in healthcare is you need some sort of partnership with a larger entity. And the larger entity is going to do their homework on you before they agree to anything officially. Whether it's, speaking with other people in the industry about your product or about your team personally, it's really important to, maintain sort of a good personal relationship with those in the industry because, healthcare is relatively a small world. So that's sort of on the team side. On the product side, it's really important to get lots of feedback early on because that's how you improve your product. And, there's also elements of that in creating a good team. I guess the number one thing that helped us get to the point where we were coachable, where we could work with bigger companies, was we heard a lot of people give our products a lot of critiques for a lot of different reasons. And that helped us refine, okay, let's get rid of that. That thing doesn't have any value. Let's change this. They're genuinely right about that. And then once you hear true and honest feedback, you can become that thing that the entity that big companies want to work with.
So you listened.
Absolutely. Internalized. Changed. Yeah, definitely.
Do you think you did that from the very beginning? Or was it something you kind of learned to do or you kind of did from the very beginning?
So, in business school, we were taught about the importance of feedback. So, to an extent, we did, and we realized that feedback was important and nothing to get offended by. But, when you design something and someone tells you it's not going to work because of this or it's a dumb idea because of that, it's very hard for you to not take it personally. So, we thought we were maybe taking feedback, but I'm sure there were tons of times when we weren't. But what we did do was, whether the feedback tended to be valuable or not, we did consider everything and said, is this legitimate? Is this not? And that didn't happen until way down the line. It was definitely an evolution.
So when you sit here today and you think back about the last 3 years, there probably were, I think in every startup has these, 2 to 3 moments or decisions that you made that were probably responsible for a disproportionate amount of the progress or success you've had.
Yeah. What
would you boil down to the 2 or 3 best decisions that you made or most important decisions you made as an entrepreneur in the first 3 years of your business?
Definitely. Okay, one really important one was joining our incubators, Blueprint Health and Startup Health. Both are fantastic organizations. I won't bore everyone with the values of each, but just like you were saying, you need partnerships in healthcare to succeed as an entrepreneur. And both of those help you at different stages get really valuable partnerships. Deciding to join both, 1,000% something I would do again in a heartbeat.
Differentiating them in your mind, how? For why both?
So both are incredible. Blueprint is earlier stage and shorter. It's 3 months. Startup Health, in my opinion, tends to be later stage and 3 years. So just if you think of a startup and what one can accomplish in those timelines, both are extremely important. The first 3 months, the next 3 years, and you need support for both. So, my opinion, not speaking for the organization's genuine belief. That's number one. Number two, co-founders/partners. John and Mike and Andres, the thing that all those guys have in common is that they're just like the smartest, most hardworking people who really care about producing awesome products. And if any one of those qualities didn't exist, not only would AdhereTech wouldn't even be close to where it is today. You need to work with really smart people who know what they know what they don't know, aren't afraid to be honest. And then number three, I don't know, speaking to the we heard lots of no's like any startup from, customers, investors. We took those no's in, we internalized them, but the best wins are when smart people say yes. So I don't know if this is really a decision, but when our pilot partners said yes, big pharma companies, when our investors said yes, those are really... How
many said no in both of those scenarios before you got your your yeses? A lot. Is that tens? Is it, was it 10 or was it 100? Or something in the middle?
It's sort of... It's many tens, but maybe even more. But they were saying no to something that isn't this company today. It's sort of like picture, an athlete who eventually gets to the pros. They get signed by a pro team, when they've become, a world-class athlete. When they're in high school or middle school, pro teams don't care about them, and that makes total sense. You have to evolve and grow. And that's what we did. And when we heard those no's, we really looked back on what we were and what we had. And it makes sense for some of them. That's not to say every no we feel like was legitimate. There were a lot of battery not included people that, you sort of just encounter naturally. And their no's were less so. We were pretty smart about saying that's a legitimate no, that's not. But we heard a lot of no's and we grew from it. And that made all the difference.
So, final question: when we sit here 3 years from now and look back, what has to happen for you to feel really happy with the progress you made at AdhereTech? How will you measure that?
Lots of patients using our, I don't want to say just bottles because we hope to go beyond that. Lots of patients using AdhereTech's products and services to improve their lives in a really easy way. That's the vision. We're on our way. It's already happening on a small scale, but lots of people. Something that I feel separates healthcare entrepreneurs from entrepreneurs of other industries, and this is not to say other industries are, less good, but, healthcare, we get up in the morning, we're not just in it to, see the sales go up. It's, this is actually helping patients. This is going to improve lives. It really motivates you in many different ways. I don't know if there's a selection bias. Honestly, I really don't even want to imply that. But so in order for me to be happy in 3 years, I want not only the company to do well, which I guess is sort of implicit in a lot of people using the products, but this improving lives.
And changing that. Isn't that the best part about working every day with entrepreneurs in this sector is everybody's passionate about the improvements or the changes and the lives that are being, whether it's saved, extended, or just improved.
Exactly.
And you can't feel bad about getting up every day and doing that. So
no, it's bigger than you.
It really is. And I could spend hours talking to you just because there's so many different things we can unpack. And I hopefully will be able to have you back on the show.
I'd love to.
And keep measuring the progress. One of the best parts about working with companies for multiple years is every 90 days you're getting to see the progress that they're making. So watching the pilots be successful, watching you achieve what you've done, and just the great reputation that you've been able to earn over the last few years has been great. So I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for listening to this first episode, trying to feel our way around and get the feeling for how we can try to celebrate the great work that people like Josh are doing every day. This is probably the hardest industry to be an entrepreneur in because of all of these obstacles we've talked about. I think the idea of getting to the core of people's stories and understanding that these startups are just being run by people who are passionate about solving these really important problems. This has been an incredibly exciting day for us. I look forward to speaking with you again next week, Josh, hopefully having you on the show again soon. And thank you for listening.